Tom Bailey, hello.
How you doing?
I'm really good. Welcome to Virgin Radio, Virgin Radio 80s Plus.
Thank you very much.
I have been wanting to meet you now for years, probably a decade or so.
Yeah.
Congratulations, your songs are, they soundtrack such an era, and they still sound amazing now. We're going to play quite a few.
Well, thank you.
As part of your 80s playlist, but thank you for giving us so much.
No, you're most welcome. It was fun doing it all, and it's amazing that people still listen to it now.
I love the fact that we're actually going to talk about some of your brilliant songs, because you put some of them on the list. So I'm dying to ask you about Hold Me Now. We play this so much on Virgin Radio 80s Plus, on all of our stations, in fact. What is it about? Tell me about this song.
It's one of those songs that kind of came together so easily because it was based on a real situation. I'd actually had a big argument with Alana Curry, who was in the band at the time, and we decided to kind of get over it, to kiss and make up, and immediately wrote Hold Me Now after that. So it was with that in mind, like a real release of emotion.
And lots of people say that through difficult situations in life, especially relationships, with heartbreak, come some of the greatest pieces of music and inspiration. Would you go along with that?
I think that's absolutely true, yeah. I mean, you can't make that stuff up quite so effectively as when it's real.
Yeah. And what is it about this song, as we go into this song, why does it still sound fresh now, fresh now, as it did it was 40 years ago, wasn't it?
That's right. It's exactly 40 years ago. I don't really know, to be honest. It's just things came together that day. And for the rest of the album, to be honest, because we went on to make an album thinking, oh my God, we've set the bar pretty high here. We better keep it up there. And it was an amazing experience for us.
We're going to zip straight into, and I love the fact that you've gone for this version, The Art of Noise, and obviously Tom Jones, isn't it? The cover of the Prince song. Why have you gone for the cover and not the Prince?
Well, because I was looking for something by Art of Noise, because on the 17th we're playing in London and they're opening for us.
Yeah.
So I thought I'm gonna promote them as well. And of course they were an influential outfit. I really loved what they did, and they kind of grasped new technology by the throat, didn't they? And really got stuck into it. And those kind of things are influential to musicians, And then you've got a great song by another hero, Prince, and sung by one of the great entertainment characters of all time. So it's a killer combination, really, isn't it?
And The Art of Noise, if you don't remember The Art of Noise, they really were doing experimental things before a lot of other people, weren't they? They were like the pioneers of testing things and putting albums of instrumental music out.
That's right, and using sampling, which we're kind of used to now. Everyone does that at home on their laptops, But in those days, it was kind of space age technology, and not everyone had access to it, and not everyone wanted to do it. But they, as I say, they got stuck in and made some amazing music.
And what would you say? This is a cover version of a really famous song, but it's almost like they ripped Prince's version up.
Yeah.
Isn't it? And totally made it. Is that how you do a cover, a successful cover?
Well, you don't want to slavishly copy anything, but be influenced and inspired by it, as well as being true to its original intention somehow. But it's, of course, even with your own work, you can do a different version that somehow twists the flavour in a different direction. And that's what great cover versions do. And
we should remember Tom Jones' tight leather trousers when he performed this song. They almost had a personality of their own. And I think they ripped once on live TV.
That's right.
All right. Tom Bailey's with me. Are you enjoying this so far this week?
Absolutely, yeah. I've just flown in from New Zealand. I'm a little bit head spinning still. And it's great to be back in London, and here we are.
Well, we're going to dip straight into a song now. I am guilty. I bought the remix of this song. This is pop music, and I seem to remember it came out at the end of the 80s, but of course it was released originally years before. Was it? Tell me about this song.
Well, I got to know it because it was an instant hit, I think, when in my ears anyway. And then I discovered that a keyboard player called Wally Badarou that I'd been working with in the Bahamas, of all places, was the keyboard player on this record. And it's one of those things you kind of dance and sing along to for ages. And then years later, like 40 years later, someone introduced it as the best pop song of all time. And I thought, you know what? There's only a short step to agreeing with that.
Yeah.
It is fantastic.
So let me ask you this question. What makes it that?
It's got the ultimate kind of foot-tapping groove, a sing-alongable chorus, and little catchphrases in it that make you want to just repeat it over and over again. But it also has a kind of stylistic cutting edge. It's not like everything else that you heard before.
So different, isn't it?
Yeah.
And the guy's vocal as well.
Yeah.
It's almost like he's a theatrical performer, don't you think?
Yeah, and it's a bit of a one-off, I think.
Yeah. It's got that Buggles kind of vibe to it, hasn't it? Just something that appears. And the 80s did provide a lot of these songs, occasional songs that are just almost like one-hit wonders. But
Well, I think because of the technology, people were trying ideas out, and occasionally that led to a one-hit wonder breakthrough for them. And sometimes it spawned a long career, 6, 7, 8 albums or something. But in this case, it's a kind of standalone piece of work and absolutely brilliant.
Tom Bailey's with me from the Thompson Twins. We're going to do one of your own now. This is You Take Me Up. Tell me about this track. One of my favourites. I love this song. Tell me everything, will you, Tom? I'm leaving it to you.
Well, at some stage in the Thompson Twins, I realised we were no longer a kind of band of instrumental musicians that you had to write songs for, but rather we were designers of a pop music experience, which might sound like a kind of cheesy thing to say, but for me it was really liberating.
What does that mean? Can you break that down?
Well, it meant, for example, I didn't have to write a drum part. I didn't have to have a part for the guitarist. I didn't, So this is a song with no drum kit. There's no guitar in it. There isn't really a bass line. And it used ideas from kind of American hoedown and gospel music, choruses, and then kind of weird things which I never expected to do, like harmonica. I learned to play the harmonica in order to do this song.
For this song?
Yes.
Really? How long did that take?
Not long, because it's not a very complicated part. But you know what I mean? We were free to do whatever we wanted because we weren't trying to fit into the preconcept of a band.
Yeah, and I bet this is really fun to play live.
Absolutely.
And what kind of reaction do you get from the crowd when you do this live?
Well, because there's a kind of call and answer thing going on in the song, I sing some lines and the audience sing the response back to me, which is fantastic.
Brilliant. I'm so glad you put Prefab Sprout down on the list. One of these bands I would absolutely love to see live. Such a big fan. Tell me about your feelings about the music that they released in the 80s.
Well, I fell in love with one of their albums because it was produced by Thomas Dolby, who I knew, and I kind of checked them out. I thought it was great songwriting, but it has a kind of sophisticated edge to it that is perhaps lacking in some other people's work. So I became a fan. Sadly, Paddy McAloon, who was the leader of that band, is a little bit of a recluse these days for one reason or another. But his brother Martin is out and about singing these songs, and
really?
Performing them, yeah.
Oh, okay.
And he'll be opening for me on some of my tour concert nights. So that's another reason that I included them.
So, and he performs the Prefab Sprout songs?
Yeah, because he was the bassist in the band.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And tell me about, you mentioned the tour. It's great to hear you going back out. Can you tell me when does it start?
Well,
How many dates have you got?
It's on the 10th of May. This particular tour starts on the 10th of May, and the reason for it is that it's 40 years since our album Into the Gap, with Hold Me Now and Doctor and all those things. So we thought, let's do one of those things where we perform the whole album. Not in the order that is on the record necessarily.
Oh, I see, okay.
But we're going to play all of those songs and a few other hits and hopefully surprises as well. So that's what we're doing.
Is it mad to think that it was 40 years ago?
It's absolutely crazy. And of course, you never expect that we'll be having this conversation. It doesn't work like that in pop music, but here we are.
And the crowd, are they all ages? I mean, who comes to see your gigs?
There's definitely the people from the 80s who, many of whom had their, raised their own families, and they've grown up, and so they're free to come out and have a good time again.
Yeah.
So they want to pick up where they left off.
Yeah.
But sometimes they're dragging their children's generation along as well.
That must be great to see.
It is nice, and of course I have to thank people like yourself. The radio keeps things alive. You know?
Well, like I say, all your songs still have that special quality of sounding retro but futuristic, like very current. That's what I'm trying to say.
Right, so we do see people of all ages.
Brilliant. Tom Bailey's with me. What are you going to pick next? Go on, Tom. You chuck me a track here.
Okay, well, when I think about the kind of synth pop revolution of the 80s, the one that started it off in terms of being a massive global hit and breaking through to every mainstream chart was Don't You Want Me Baby by the Human League. And I'm a big fan of them, and I've done lots of concerts with them. I saw them recently in New Zealand when I was only, I think, 3 weeks ago, and they're just fabulous, and it means a lot to me that a band like that really broke the doors down for this new sound to kind of gain ground especially in America, where it's all rocktastic and it's all big guitar sounds. All that. They had a hard job, but they succeeded totally because of the brilliance of the work, the production, the songwriting. And of course, everyone knows it. Everyone sings along with it.
Yeah, and they've done some quite experimental stuff. But this could be called another one of your perfect pop songs.
That's right. And I do remember actually when we were all after punk, when we were all trying to be very cool and not pop. Phil Oakey from the Human League said, it's okay to be pop. Pop music is a great thing. And I remember reading this in the NME or something and agreeing with it in my heart, thinking, that's what it's about. And
would you say that this song by them kind of made pop cool again? It seemed to kind of break through that barrier that pop can be everything.
Yeah, and I think, especially when you look at it globally, there were radio stations that wouldn't play anything like that until that song came along, and suddenly they thought, this is great.
Amazing. Tom Bailey's with me. I love the fact you put Kraftwerk down. We spoke about Art of Noise earlier this week. Were they similar outfits, or did one come before the other? Kraftwerk were around slightly before.
Oh, absolutely before.
Yeah.
I think they were even operating in the 70s, but they came to my attention in the late 70s when they started behaving like robots.
Yeah.
I thought, this is cool. Here are people singing robotically about something that's simultaneously very sexy, but it's also a kind of social commentary or a cultural commentary at the same time. And of course, their sound was completely synthetic. It was all done with drum machines and synthesizers. So massive influence on people like me, who dreamed about making records that way, and eventually, when I got the opportunity to do it, I was standing on their shoulders, basically. Anyway, recently my band, in an attempt to kind of pay homage to our roots, we've been rehearsing a Kraftwerk song to perform. I don't know if we'll do it, actually. We'll see how.
Can you tell me which one?
It's called The Model.
I'm dying to hear that.
It's a bit of a challenge. It's a pop song without a chorus, actually.
Yeah.
Very weird. But again, irresistible. Foot tapper, sing-alongable, and it's got that kind of that tasty but bleak synthetic industrial techno sound to it.
I was going to say, when you think of the equipment that must have been used, so now you have a MacBook or whatever to create this, but they must have had a whole room full of different bits of equipment and all kinds of gear.
I think they probably did try all sorts of stuff, and I mean, when I've been to see them recently, it has been four people standing with laptops.
It's not quite the same stage, but it's great how technology's come on.
Yeah, and of course it's part of their futuristic vision that somehow everything becomes convenient and miniaturized and powerful. And I think it's a strong influence.
And how hopeful could I be that you will put this into your show? Your set list?
Well, that remains to be seen. We'll see how
you're working on it.
Yeah.
One of the most popular songs requested on this bit of the show is Talking Heads. All kinds of people have asked for this song for all kinds of reasons. I'm going to open the platform to you.
Right, well, Once in a Lifetime, I think, was the song that broke them with UK radio. But I'd been a fan for, I think, 4 albums before that. They were always amazing. To me, they were the acceptable face of American rock music, at the time, because there was this kind of there was such an interesting kind of art context to it, And I loved the fact that the bass player was female, and that they didn't really demonstrate their technical ability with the instruments, but rather create kind of irresistible appeal in the music as it gelled together. And I ended up being friends with all of them and working separately with them on solo projects and what have you. And again, it's another one that I pay homage to. I do a version of an early Talking Heads song. So, yeah. It all makes sense to me.
Yeah, but this is one of those songs that nothing sounded like it at the time, and nothing really sounded like it since. I don't think it's so unique, isn't it? Yeah,
well, I don't think they were following in the footsteps of anybody else. No, they were just doing it their way. They were the art student band of New York City, so they just did what they thought was creative.
We are rattling through these songs. Your best songs from the, let's face it, the best decade. What are you going to go for next? Should we do it? Let's do another Thompson Twins song, shall we?
Okay.
Maybe my favourite. We were listening to. Yeah, I love this. I think it's got it all going on. Doctor.
Ah, fantastic. Well, it is one of the good ones, and I enjoy playing it live. It seems to have. It's a funny thing because the verses are quite restrained in a way, and then suddenly the chorus is going to burst out into this, and everyone sings along, and it's great. We don't really know what the song is about. People ask me, what is it about? And,
I was going to ask
you. I think great songs don't just have one meaning. There are layers of meaning that you could take. And
was there influence, though?
I think it's probably following the tradition of those songs that see love as a kind of illness that that seized you and you can't get over it, kind of thing.
Yeah.
There are lots of songs like that. But also, I come from a medical family, so I can't really shake off the feeling that perhaps I was trying to avoid being obvious, but that it was something to do with that, I had big disputes with my father, who was an amazing man and a doctor. And at the time I wrote that song, I don't think I was getting on with him.
Did he? Interesting. I was going to ask you about your younger life. Were you under a lot of pressure to follow on from, to be a medical student?
Sure, yeah. There was a lot of academic pressure anyway. I mean, I think he respected music a lot, but he wanted me to be an academic or classical musician. And of course, as soon as I got hold of a guitar when I was 15 or something,
yeah,
that dream rather went down the
And how did that go down with him?
Again, he kind of tolerated it, but there was always this thing of, get a proper job.
And that you did, because 40 years later, we're still talking about this. He must have been proud, though. Did he see you on stage back in the, and on Top of the Pops and what have you?
For a long time, he wouldn't come to a concert. And then I think it got embarrassing because too many of his friends were asking if he could fix it to get an autographed copy of or something. And then someone in my band invited my parents to a show, and they came down to London and had a great time.
Brilliant. Yeah. Tom Bailey's with me. Should we talk about Thomas Dolby, Hyperactive?
Yeah, because after the tour in the UK, we're going to America and playing a long tour. I'm co-headlining with Thomas Dolby, and it's going to be great fun. I've known him for 45 years. When I first got a synthesizer, I was working with a producer, Steve Lillywhite, and Steve didn't trust that I knew enough about synthesizers, so he made a call to this guy, Thomas Dolby, and brought him into the studio, and we worked kind of side by side. But amazingly, I've never actually been on a stage with him, so this time we're going to do that together.
Wow, that's going to be quite a thing, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then, so you're doing the tour here and then going to the States and working there. So it's quite a busy year for you.
Oh, yeah. I'll be exhausted, yeah.
And what else is on the cards? What else can we expect from you and from the band?
Well, who knows? I'm always writing. I'm kind of slowly accumulating enough material for another record, perhaps, but I can't make any promises about where, when, or how. As we said, lots of concerts during the northern summer, and then I'll probably go back to New Zealand and try and record.
And one final question, I'm just dying to ask you your thoughts. What do you think of the music? What do you think of music now? Where are we at now? Are there bands? Are there certain sounds that still excite you?
Oh yeah, absolutely. There's always stuff going on. But I will say two negative things before I say anything positive. One of which is, unfortunately, rock and roll used to be this kind of uncontrollable, rebellious thing, and in the 80s we certainly captured that feeling that we wanted music to make the world a better place. Somehow that's been captured and thrown away and become a marketing dream, and I'm a bit sad about that. So if I can somehow remember that when I'm on stage, I always try to do that. The other thing is that because of the way that we listen to music and consume it these days, it's very hard for new bands to survive. They've got to be streaming millions of things before they can even put food on the table.
Yeah.
And it's super hard, and I think that's a pity. The music business has to be careful that it doesn't kill itself by only dealing with the mega successful. It has to nurture the grassroots of music.
And if there's people listening and they are, aspiring musicians, up and coming artists, is it a case, would you say it's still the case of perform, get your stuff out there, post it on social media, make sure as many people... I mean, what is the formula now?
I don't know, because I come from the good old bad old days where you did gigs in clubs and pubs and then eventually made a record. That was it. There was no other plan. And now it's much more fragmented, it's much more complicated in a way, and sophisticated. And in a way, I don't think that musicians should be their own promoters. There has to be kind of a division of labour, sharing of responsibility, because the fact is we all love music, right? So we don't want to see it die. Let's fertilise the ground that we can plant seeds in and make something grow.
Well, it's been great meeting you. Thank you so much for your time. I can't wait to see you live as well this summer. I'm going to be there.
Oh, fantastic.
I'll be shouting Dr. Doctor back.
There you go.
Tom Bailey, thank you very much.
You're most welcome. It's a great pleasure.
Virgin Radio.